It's such a compelling love story.
Or crazy.
It's crazy in a good way.
I always feel like it needs a big disclaimer. Like, do not try this at home, kids. Like,
well, I want to ask you about that because I think people hear your story and there's a lot of takeaways potentially. Yeah. So I want to get your analysis of your own story. But first, for those that haven't heard it.
What is the story?
And also give us more of the background on Emily, because you've also overcome a lot of things personally.
Okay. So Chris and I met when I was 30 years old. And I had come back to the church 5 years before that. So I grew up Catholic, but I was catechized in the 1980s and early 1990s when not a lot of catechesis was happening, really John Paul II coming for World Youth Day in Denver in 1993, just set off this spark.
See as a mission field.
It is. And I was so grateful that I worked for men who were called there. I had friends who were called there. I was glad there were good people there. I was not called to be there. So I picked up my blog got a lot of attention. A lot of people asked me to write for them. I bought a house because I was tired of fixing up I was always fixing up rentals. I love to renovate houses. And I think I was laying in bed one night going, this house needs new ceilings. I was like, no, Emily, you're not allowed to redo the ceiling in a rental. Like, you must buy a house. And renovating, went online on Catholic Match. And I did not want to go online at Catholic Match. I was like, Lord, I love men who like Jane Austen. And
I drop the handkerchief and they pick it up at the ball. That is what we were doing.
Exactly. I was like, I don't want to meet someone online, Lord. I don't want to meet someone
Honestly,
online.
I feel like the amount of stumbling blocks that Mr. Darcy and Jane Austen have been to a whole generation of women. I mean,
but emails, there was no chat, there was no text. And we had our first phone call a couple of weeks after. And then he came in town and we went on a great date. And he took me to see all of these beautiful, he was from Pittsburgh, but he was teaching in South Carolina at the time. And he came up to visit his mom, but really to take me out. And we went around and looked at all these beautiful buildings in downtown Pittsburgh and beautiful old churches. And I was so smitten by him. Like, I was so nervous I couldn't eat, at the meal. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the man I'm going to marry. I'm sure this is the man I'm going to marry. And I came home and my best friend was there and she's like, tell me all about it. I was like, he showed me old buildings. And she's like, oh Lord, nobody could have picked a better date for you. But he did not have the same feelings about me. So his thought was not, I'm going to marry this woman. His thought was, she's really lovely. She's really interesting, but I don't think this is it. But he did want to keep talking to me. So we had this long distance on and off kind of friendship over the course of the next year.
And he wanted to keep talking to you because he liked your mind, your personality. Like, there was a connectivity there and he didn't want to let go of that. Like, what was, not that we're going to fully speak for him here because he's not here, but why? I mean, if he's like, I'm not interested like that, why was he still talking to you?
Because that was a good question, Laura. That's a really good question.
It's a telltale sign of something,
well,
right?
It wasn't clear right away that that's not how he felt. Like, he kept
I see. Yeah. So he wasn't like, I'm not interested, Emily. He just kept on communicating.
He just kept on doing exactly what we've been doing for about a month, for the previous month.
And you're like, I'm marrying you.
And I was like, I'm going to marry this guy. I know I'm going to marry this guy. But I wanted to sort of give him space. I didn't know he was far away. I didn't know what was going on with him. And I think in February, finally, I was like, hey, you know what? You send me all these letters. When you're in town, you come and see me. What's going on? Like, what are your intentions here, basically? And he's like, well, I really enjoy our friendship, but I'm not prepared for anything more, which I know a lot of women have heard those words. And I was like, at that point, he did explain some things to me. He was like, well, I have this history. He'd had 2 broken engagements. He had some physical, he was sick at the time in a way that nobody understood. It was probably long Lyme's disease is what we eventually figured out. He just didn't feel like he was in the headspace to make a decision. And as I always tease him, his idea of falling in love with the person you're supposed to marry is a Disney movie, like where forest animals start singing and there's birds twittering around. He was
very romantic.
It was very romantic.
Yeah.
He expected to feel basically what I felt looking at him, like, okay, this is exactly who I want to marry.
Yeah.
And he didn't feel that way, but he's like, but I really like her. Like, I love being around her. She's interesting. She's funny. She's a good woman. I like to spend time with her, but I'm not there. Quick.
Who gonna tell her? Who gonna tell her? Now listen, I'm not here to destroy anybody's marriage or relationship. I want to have a real conversation about this because I think this is powerful, right? We normally see Black people in this space. I don't found one. So I want to have a real conversation about this, right? Because I think this is something that I've been seeing, right? That sometimes what happens is some people can over spiritualize God. Now, does it mean that God can't work in a scenario where someone has to wait for 10 years before they get married? God can. So we have to put it in that category and say, there is actually a real situation where God can actually make it be 10 years before this thing happens, right? Especially for the fact that she wasn't having sex with this man. They weren't having any interactions like that. It could have been. And she said she had dated people in between those 10 years too, et cetera, et cetera. But baby girl, at 30, when you met this man, for 10 years, you guys were just friends and you were in and out. And for some reason, you liked him from the very beginning, but he wasn't returning that to you. I think sometimes what happens is we over spiritualize what God is doing. Sometimes we have to be clear that, you know, sometimes we're not ready to move when God is asking us to move. And sometimes God will allow some of us to be a lesson for other people. God sometimes will allow your mistakes or even your choices, okay, to work into his perfect plan. Now, it could have been another man. Maybe it was another man. Maybe had she pushed a bit more, she would have found out. Because let's go a little bit deeper in this video, okay? All right. She was graced to stay 10 years, but let's listen a bit more and then we'll break it down a bit more.
Segue, because I don't know. I feel like we have to do a little philosophizing on your story as we go. There's so much about it. But I think that like that's so interesting because there is, back to Jane Austen novels and everything else, there is a cultural narrative, which isn't all wrong.
Romance novels and all these things have changed. Our
sexual son loves to eat meat, and he really loves dollars off. Heart nutrition.
Good friends. But I was praying.
Hold on.
And then somehow months would go by and something would always happen where we'd start talking again. And once we started talking again, we would fall right back into our old patterns. And I should say none of these patterns were ever sinful. Okay.
So in the 10 years, they would be on and off in terms of talking. At 30 plus, on and off conversations whilst you liked him and you already had a conversation about wanting him. And he said, I just see you as being a nice person. Baby girl, I think the truth here is, and as someone's put in the chat, he did like the attention. I've been there before, but that's something that you do when you're 18. I can't lie to you. You do this when you're juvenile or a vagabond, right? Now, I'm not insulting a husband. I'm just saying what we used to do as young people. When you were young and insecure, you wanted the ego stroke, right? You know that girl or that guy likes you and you have no intention of ever going there, but you don't want to release them into the wild because while they're with you, they're feeding you, they're entertaining you, they are following your lead, they are just spicing you, making you feel like the most amazing person in the world, even though you know you don't want them. This is what it sounds like slightly a little bit.
Had a very good friendship. We never put each other even in a near occasion of sin. It was very chaste. We loved talking with each other. We loved being with each other.
You're buddies.
We were such good friends. But I was praying every day, like, Lord, like, I want what you want. Like if you want Chris for me, I want Chris. If you do not want Chris for me, I don't want him. Please change my heart. But I don't know what to do, Lord, because I felt like God was always saying, like, this is who I have for you. I mean,
well, listen, I can't argue with her. If she says that she believes that God was always, if she says that obviously that God was always saying that this is the one for her, who am I to argue? I can't argue that. If you tell me, but let me just tell you, let me just warn people. Couple of years ago, like I think I told you guys already, I remember I asked the Lord, I thought one of my girlfriends was the one. And so when we went through a little turmoil and everything like that, right, I was praying about it. And you know what, when I look back at my notes last year in terms of what I had written down, do you know what I found? I had asked God, is this person my wife? I had no answer. But I asked Lord, will that person return back to my life? I heard yes. How the hell did I switch to 2? I know what happens. Delusion. Sometimes a strong delusion will happen because you need to learn a lesson, number one. And number one, you need to learn how to have better boundaries. Number 2, you need to have a better self-esteem and self-worth. You also need to learn also as well wisdom to maneuver in the realms of the earth. When it comes to relationship, right? So sometimes what God will allow is for seasons and situations to train you so that you can be a better partner in future. And so in that scenario, when that happened, when I remember being in that scenario, being in that situation at the time, thinking that is God saying this person is for me. What I knew was the person was coming back for sure. I could guarantee it. I was saying it, and it was absolutely true. That word did come to pass. The problem was that I was so heavily involved wanting it to be the one. And I mixed the one with the person coming back. Them coming back does not mean they're going to be your one. But because I was so heavily wanting it, I didn't realize that God had not answered that prayer. So let me just say this now. I had dreams. I had confirmations. I had visions. I would see the person, word, everything that God has said will come to pass. But what was he saying that would come to pass? That's the key part. Now, Could I have been with that person? Absolutely. We did get back together again. Me and the person got back together again. And you know what I realized? This ain't for me. Right?
There was like this phrase that I would get whenever I'd be like, I'm so done with this, Lord. What do you want me to do? Should I say something and cut this off? And you know, I'm never very good at the chapter and verse, but it was like in patience. It's why in quiet and confidence is your strength. And I'd be like, okay, so I'm supposed to be quiet. Lord, that's how I always took it. Like I needed to be patient. I needed to trust. I needed to be quiet. And so I'd be patient. And one time I was so irritated at the whole situation. I was like, Lord, I am done. Like, if you want me to, I'm like, I want a letter in the mail, God. If you want me to continue being Chris's friend, I want you to send me a letter in the mail.
From God?
From God. I told God I wanted a letter.
Now, notice what she asked. Listen very carefully. What she actually asked was not what she should be asking. This is a very good lesson for all of us. What she asked is not what she should be asking. She asked, Lord, send me a letter if I should still be a what? Type in the chat for me if you're available and you know what I'm talking about. She said, what specifically? If I should be his what? Notice that she asked this question specifically. Okay? Notice that. Right? The question she asked is purposeful, not asking the full question because you don't want to ask because you're afraid. That's what I believe a lot of times happens to us as Christians, right? So from my perspective anyway, that's what I'm looking at. She said, Lord, send a letter if I'm meant to be their friend. Now, I'm telling you from personal experience, I've prayed the same prayer and the person stayed in my life. But you know what I also learned by the end? God also gave me agency and wisdom to know that that friendship wasn't a good friendship. But you know what? Sometimes you have a hard head and you need to learn the lesson. But let's listen to what she said.
It's why in quiet and confidence is your strength. And I'd be like, okay, so I'm supposed to be quiet. Lord, that's how I always took it. Like I needed to be patient. I needed to trust. I needed to be quiet. And so I'd be patient. And one time I was so irritated at the whole situation. I was like, Lord, I am done. Like, if you want me to, I'm like, I want a letter in the mail, God. If you want me to continue being Chris's friend, I want you to send me a letter in the mail.
From God?
From God. I told God I wanted a letter in the mail.
Now listen to what she said. I want to know if I should still be his friend, not his wife. Why didn't she ask that question? Because sometimes when we do ask that question, we know the thing will come to an end. If I ask that question, I know that this could be a no. And if it's a no, then this friendship ends. Do you see what I'm saying to you? So this is really important for us as Christians to really pay attention. What question are you asking the Lord? Because if you're hiding and not being honest and true, you're going to get answers that are not going to be fulfilling for you, that are going to actually get you to where you're supposed to be. So she asks, should I continue being his friend? But you don't want to be his friend. You want to be his wife. You want to be his wife. Now I'm going to tell you something. The Lord doesn't waste a drop. Let me tell you something. He said, all things work together for who's good. Let me say it one more time. He said, all things work together for who's good. Now, why do I say this? Because the Lord can allow a situation to work for his good. He can allow you to go the path you're going because it's still in alignment. It still works in alignment with the plan that he has for you. Okay. All right. So we're going to pay attention now.
The next day I get a letter, not from God, but from a friend. And on the back of the envelope is that stupid verse, like in quiet and in confidence is your strength.
Did she know that verse meant a lot to you?
She had no clue. Nobody knew. I never told anyone about this verse. Never until after we were married.
Was the letter about Chris?
No, it was about me helping pay her gas bill. I was paying her gas bill for her. So she was writing me a thank you note for helping her out with her gas bill. And it had that verse on the back of it. And I was like, all right, Lord. There was another time right before he moved back from South Carolina. I didn't know he was going to be moving back. And I was leaving Mass on campus. And I was sad. I was like, Lord, I am so hung up on this guy who we haven't talked for a long time. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I believe your will is in the situation. And the situation is that I am here and he is there and we are not talking. And so like, Lord, unless you want me to, I am done. I'm not going to say another prayer about this guy unless you change the situation. Like your will is in the situation. That night, Chris called me to tell me he was moving back to Pittsburgh. And I was like, okay, God, what are you doing?
Like, demonic activity. No, I'm joking. Obviously.
She's joking, but she's being serious. No. She's joking, but she's being serious. She said, oh, demonic activity, joking around. But she's being serious. Because, and here's the thing. Sometimes it's not even demonic activity. I want to tell you sometimes. Sometimes it's not even demonic activity. sometimes we allow ourselves go into a religious psychosis, but sometimes we go into delusion because we have an idol. Sometimes we go into a place where we idolize something and we don't recognize. Look, let me tell you something. Like I said, because I've experienced this twice, I know I've experienced it spiritually. I know what I'm talking about when I say this. When you're not paying attention to the answers that are actually coming because you want the answers to align with your heart posture and what you actually want. Sometimes when you're hearing the answer, you're not actually hearing it correctly and well. Okay. So now we're in a situation that we're dealing with a man who is said that you're in a friend zone and we're going to lose 10 years of our life really feeling like this person. You know what I'm saying to you? Right now, just remind yourselves, but I want to make it clear. She married a man, by the way. They actually did marry in the end. I'm not going to lie to you. They married in the end. So, you know what I mean? I just want to be able to just put that out there.
It was like so ridiculous.
So yeah. I've got to ask you, because this is a really important point. The point about chastity, that was really important, because it's one thing if you're like, we're not married, he doesn't actually want to marry me, but like we're still doing sexual things together. It's like, no, don't do it.
If you are leading each other into sin, that is not God working in your life.
But then the other thing is your posture, because you maintained occasionally, sometimes you'd freeze him out and then like he'd come back in and you would talk and you would have this like friendship, a very real, beautiful friendship. That was really hard.
My question is, why does he keep coming in and out of the friendship? That's a question you have to ask yourself. Why does he keep coming in and out of the friendship? Because it's a friendship at the end of the day. They're not doing anything wrong. You know, you know, you're not having any nasty conversations. Y'all aren't sexting or nothing. So why does he keep coming in and out of the relationship? Why do you keep falling in and out of the friendship? Because he knows that you like him and he understands that when it gets to a certain point, he can't give you any more than that because you're not in a friendship. You see, and sometimes what God wants to do is allow you to go through a situation so you can wake up to your own delusion. Sometimes you're trying to put a Jesus plaster on a situation when you downright know there is no friendship. There is no friendship. I've been in this situation myself and trying to slap God on it. So why am I here? The reason why you're here is because you got no boundaries, you got low self-esteem and low self-worth. And then you're trying to slap God on it because you're desperate to get this outcome from the scenario. So now you're going, well, I don't know, I should be here. No, you shouldn't be there. You don't need to be there. But guess what? God is going to allow that situation to happen because He's going to never waste a drop of that oil. You're going to learn today.
For you. But it sounds like you were actively trying to be open to other men.
I was during the season,
and you would go on other dates. Okay.
I was still in Catholic match, still going out with other guys, still asking God every day, like, Lord, like, if you do not want this to be my heart, like, change my heart. My prayer was not, God, give me Chris, God, give me Chris, God, give me Chris. I want to be Chris's wife. I was like, Lord, I really care for this guy, but if this isn't what you want, I don't want this. And those weren't always easy words to pray. Like, those were hard words, but I knew that I didn't want anything. Like, it was the Christian virtue of hope, where like you want heaven most of all, you want Christ most of all. And God had blessed me with that hope. And I'm like, no, what I want is you, Lord. And if this isn't what you have for me, if this is not going to draw me closer to you, if this is going to separate me from you, I don't want this. Take this away and give me what you do want. And I was going out with other guys, and I had a great single life, Lila. Like I remember at one point I was probably 38 and I'd gone out with a guy who was such a jerk. He was such a jerk.
How so? I mean,
like he probably was, I should not say he was a jerk. He was trying very hard to impress me, but he was coming off in a very cocky way. And he had flown in from out of town and he was rude to my friends and we'd gone on a double date.
Yeah. Do you see? No, listen. So the people that you dated before are all jerks. But that's your proof right there. That's your proof that you don't have good boundaries, good self-worth, and good self-esteem, which means the lesson wasn't learned. Remember, I tell you guys, before the promise, there is a process. Before the promise, there is a process of preparation. So in that season, when she said she's dating people, she has never found the right kind of guy. They all seem to be jerks. Yeah, the reason being is because bad boundaries, low self-esteem, low self-worth usually will be a marker as to why we date really badly, right? Now, of course, there are bad guys out there that you will have one or two of those. That's not what we're saying. But what I'm saying to you is, I think this is an indication, for me personally, it's my own opinion, that this indicates what I was saying in a run about there being an issue when it comes to the kind of people that she may be encountering, and that she's unable to let go of this guy here because he treated her kindly above all the other men who didn't treat her kindly. And that same man also too didn't want her. The reality of the situation is the reason why that works a lot of times for some people is because you don't like yourself. You don't oftentimes have a good, you often don't have a good image of self, a good esteem of self. And so what ends up happening is when somebody treats you kindly, you're like, oh my God, somebody's treating me kindly. And then you end up dating these douche people who are no good to you, who are now painting a narrative. Okay, then this person, if they've been nice to me, maybe they're the only person for me. When in reality, what needs to happen is you need to up your standards and your levels, and you need to be able to heal and get better boundaries, more self-esteem, and more self-worth. We need to do some inner work. And that could be it too, Dahlia, right?
Or actually like a triple date with some other couples, because I wasn't just going to go out with, with any random guy who came to town and spend all night with them, not all night, but the whole evening. And he was insulting them, saying they weren't treating their women they had with them nicely enough. I had season tickets to the symphony, so we had gone to the symphony, and he was complaining about my seats, that they weren't nice enough, and that if I had gone to where he was, he would have
got it. So it wasn't.
Yeah. He was just very rude. And then he tried to be inappropriate with me at the end of the night. And I was like, all right, bye.
It's like, these might be cheap seats, but you're pretty cute.
Yeah.
Like, just don't.
I wasn't desperate to marry anyone. I was just like, I want to be married still. I still want babies. I still love this Chris guy who I was not talking to at that point.
What's the longest time you went without talking to him? In the 9-year span?
In the 9-year span, probably 8 months.
Wow.
Eight months. No talking. I can tell you what happens. I can tell you what happens after 4 or 5 months of not talking to somebody. Your mindset shifts. That's what I'm going to say. Your mindset shifts. You don't even want it no more. You know what I'm saying to you? You don't even want it no more. After 3 or 4 months of being separated from a person, not talking to them, you don't even want it no more. You even look at them like, I don't know, I don't even want you no more. But 8 months is crazy. No talking. What for?
Those were really 8 months. And what I discovered and I always hesitate to say this because I don't want, I'm always scared some other woman's going to not fully, I don't want always people to do as I say. Don't do as I do. Don't do as I do necessarily, because it's so complicated. It doesn't normally work out this way. But what I realized over the course of all of our breakups and getting back, we call the breakups now that we're married, because
but you were never girlfriend and boyfriend during those 9 years.
Like breakoffs. We were breaking off the friendship. When we were not speaking, it was so incredibly hard. And I would go to bed at night and be like, Lord, I can't do this another day. I can't do this another day. And I would wake up the next morning and it would be even harder. Like there was every day was hard.
Let me tell you why it's hard. I've been here, so I know I'm going to tell you the truth. I know I've been here. Let me tell you why it's hard. It's because you guys crossed emotional boundaries. You're not friends. It's hard because every time you break up, you're like, why are we actually breaking up? We're not breaking up because we're not cool. We're breaking up because there is something deeper than a friendship going on. So that's why you call it a breakup, because it's a correct word. It is a breakup. I know this language. This language is, and also, by the way, this is the sound of language of an avoidant. Just want to be honest with you. They know who they are. The fearful avoidance, you know who you are. This is your language. When you're not in a relationship, but you're calling something we break up. They know break up, B. You weren't in a relationship. You know what I'm saying to you? But real spit to what she said though. That aspect of them, breaking up and not talking at those times. What was the reason for them not talking? It's a friendship. So what was the reason for not talking? We still don't know that. What is the reason why you weren't talking? Because at the end of the day, you guys were friends. So there's no reason for him to not talk to you for 8 months, even if he's got a wife. Because at the end of the day, even if he's got a girlfriend, because, you guys are platonic. You never did anything, never won anything, but it's because you're not platonic. So something deeper is happening.
And there were times when we were friends and I would go to bed and say, Lord, I can't do this. This is ridiculous. This is frustrating. Like, you've got to give me some grace to do this another day. And I would wake up the next morning and I absolutely have the grace to do it. And I was like, no, this is what I want. Like, I want to be friends with this man. And I think there came a point, like at one point he almost died.
I'm going to tell you the truth. I don't think God was asking me to be a friend. I'm going to be real with you. Listen, I've been in this. I've been in the same. And when I keep, it's like I'm living the life. I'm like, I've really been in this situation. So I'm telling you something. God can use your ability to take hits. Okay, He can use your ability to take hits to make it work for His good. But I'm going to tell you that by the end, when I deeped it, I was like, I didn't need to go through that. Whilst it sounds great, I don't need to go through that, because you know why you don't need to go through that? Because by the end, the pain that you have, you're like, rah. If I really deeped it, I should have just left him. And if it was meant to be, he would have come back. But I wanted to stay because I didn't like the idea of being separated. That's why the friendship would break and you'd be like, I want to give you the great. But it's because you held on to that word of you having a letter come through your door. But the reality of the situation is it should have never been in the first place. We should have used wisdom and said, actually, if they're not ready to be in a relationship, there's no need for a friendship. I like you more than a friend. So this is not a friendship because I like you more than a friend. So at that point, God will allow you to sit in your strong delusion sometimes and actually allow that to work to His favor. But now you've gone through a whole bunch of years waiting, or at least, feeling for a man that never saw you in that way.
And he was in the hospital for a week, and this was during us not talking period. And he called me. It was like, I'm dying. Come to the hospital. And I went to the hospital. And you're like, we held hands in the hospital for a week. Wow. And, it was like a Mexican soap opera. It was like a telenovela. It was so crazy. And our friends were just getting the blow by blow. Truly, they didn't know what to do when we finally started dating. But even after that, he had to get healthier. We didn't start dating again for about a year after that. I had been on an interview on a big Catholic radio show on Sirius XM. And I thought I was going on to talk about a book I'd written about American Catholic history. And instead, all the host wanted to talk about was the fact that I was still single. And
ouch. How old were you at this point?
I was 39.
That must have not been fun.
It was so terrible. And Chris and I were not dating at this point. We're spending a lot of time together. And he had spent all day trying to get Sirius in his car so he could listen to the radio. So he's listening to this whole thing. And there was the host was really inappropriate. There was some very double entendre kind of remarks made about my body and Brussels sprouts. And it was just crazy and bizarre. And so I was in tears when we got off of the interview. I didn't cry on air, but I was so upset. I was like, I've been humiliated. It's every single woman's worst fear, right? You're 39 years old. You go on national radio.
Wait, what were the Brussels sprouts about?
He was asking me about my single my single male friends or something, and my cooking. And he was like, oh, what do they like you to cook? And you have three choices in this type of interview,
right?
Someone's being,
is this guy still on air?
He is. And he very kindly has apologized to me. So I am no longer angry.
He had a bad day. He had too many.
It talks about the single girl book. He says, yeah, she was single to me when she wrote that. But we still didn't talk about it. And at this point, Chris was starting to try to have conversations. He'd be like,
hold on. I went too far. Hold on.
Yeah. So anyhow, the co-host comes up to me. He's like, don't you realize what he was saying? I was like, of course I know what I was saying, but what choice did I have? So I had played along and just, and what do they like you to cook? I was like, well, they love my pasta. They love my Brussels sprouts. He's like, yeah, I bet they love your Brussels sprouts. And I was like, oh, do you have to make a dirty joke about Brussels sprouts? Like, what is wrong with you when you make a dirty joke about Brussels sprouts?
So Chris heard all that.
Chris heard all of that. He felt so bad the next day. He greeted me with flowers and a bottle of wine.
He felt bad because it's his fault.
He felt so bad because it was his fault. He always jokes about the single girl book. He says, yeah, she was single to me when she wrote that. But we still didn't talk about it. And at this point, Chris was starting to try to have conversations. He'd be like, so do you feel like maybe one of the reasons that you're not married yet is because of our friendship? And I'd be like, I don't know, maybe, who knows? Because I didn't want to have any more conversations.
Okay, did you just hear what? Yes, he came back when he was sick. Yes. Deep it, man is very much aware that she is single because of his friendship with her. He knows. A brother, look, here's what I think happens. Brother's been engaged. That guy has been engaged twice. He's got a whole bunch of sicknesses. Probably what happened in those real relationships, the sickness maybe played a part. Those women might not have wanted to stay or whatever. He might not have a great attitude. Who knows? Whatever. Those ladies weren't for him. Now he's come back to the safe haven of somebody who has always been there for him since day .1. But he was never sexually attracted to her. Let's keep it a buck. Okay, there was probably there might not have been no physical or sexual attraction. I have to keep it real. There might have been no physical or sexual attraction. That's why he never wanted to make a move and why he never ever stepped up. Simple as.
Because at that point, I'd initiated so many conversations over the years. Chris, we can't do this. Chris, we have to talk about this. And they always ended badly. They always ended with us not talking. And
so you had many conversations about the situation and it always ends with what? Badly. Because why? Because you got to leave. Because eventually either he wants to run away or, but better yet, you recognize that this friendship isn't a friendship. And you couldn't exist anymore. Truth be told.
I was done with that. Like I hit a point where I was thinking, you know what, Lord, maybe you weren't really calling me to be his wife. Maybe you're saying, I want you to be his friend. And I would have, at that point, it's like, I'd rather be Chris's friend than anyone else's wife. I've spent 20 years dating.
Hey, I'd rather be his friend than anybody else's wife. Is nuts. Darling, you're in idolatry and I need you to open your eyes and see it. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Because if you see you highly lifted up, shining in the light of your glory, pour out your power of love. As we sing, holy, holy, holy. Darling, you are in idolatry. I'm sorry, you are in idolatry. That's what it sounds like to me from the naked ear. I may be wrong. Okay, I may be wrong, but it sounds like idolatry. Okay, it sounds like idolatry. See, when you can make a statement, I'd rather be their friend than anybody else's wife, yet it sounds like idolatry, babe. Because what do you mean no one else's wife? 10 years.
I'm tired of dating. I've never met a man who's as good as my husband, who's as good as Chris is, who's as kind, who I love to be with as much. And there must be something in him that he can't move forward with marriage. And I would rather die his friend than marry somebody else. And so every time he would try to have one of these conversations, I was trying to dodge them.
No. This was
interior. This was in my heart.
Did you tell anyone that?
My best friend knew. Yeah.
What did she say?
They were all had given up at that point.
Like, we cannot control what Emily does. Like, we do not approve, but
they all have gone from like not approving and to being just like, you two are you always find your way back to each other. Like, what is even the point of not spending time together anymore? Because you're just going to start talking again. So, but I also was seeing spiritual directors at this point. I had over at different points, I'd had two very holy spiritual directors who kept encouraging me to be friends with Chris. They're like, no, I think you should continue on in this friendship. And, one of them was Father Ray Ryland, who's this amazing Catholic priest who had converted from Anglicanism and knew Walter Hooper, C.S. Lewis. He was just very holy and very lovely. And he would always be like, I'm praying on every morning he would be on his exercise bike and he was in his 80s and he'd be like, every morning I'm praying for you and Chris. And I was like, oh, thank you, Father Ryland. So I had these spiritual directors who were encouraging me to continue to be friends. Again, because I think they didn't see any signs of sin. Like my friendship with Chris made me better. Like I love Jesus more because of our friendship. I was more humble. I understood suffering more. I was becoming more who God made me to be through this friendship. And I think that's what they saw. And they saw the
baby girl, this is what happened. This is the psychosis. This is psychosis. I can't lie to you. Let me tell you why. Because I'm not gonna lie, you will get better. No, real spit, you will get better, right? And like I said, because God can use any scenario, bro. Right? Even your own delusion, he can use it, bro, to make sure that you will learn a lesson, that you'll grow in him. So you will learn about suffering. You will learn about, kindness. You'll learn about love. You'll learn about loving unrequitedly, right? Which is a very powerful gift. And so, like I said, some of us set ourselves up for failure because maybe we didn't need to learn it in that way. But you know what? We've learned it now. So now you can actually teach people how to be unrequited in love. But the problem is, should you have had to go through that situation? Probably not. Probably not. You know what I mean? Like, probably not. So, like I said, these things will teach you lessons and should bring you back to Christ. So, yeah, look, if it's bringing you back to Christ Jesus, now she's a Catholic, so I don't know. Sometimes Catholic, not saying that every Catholic is that, but I'm saying sometimes Catholics be very open and universal with what gods they actually worship. Sometimes they would put Mary on the same pedestal as Jesus. I don't know. It's a bit weird sometimes. That's not every Catholic, just saying in general, right? But yeah, so that was like, okay. Okay. And so, yeah, that's a very good point. Also, it's a very good point. Just because it's not actual sexual sin doesn't mean there's no sin involved. right? And just because we're not having sexual conversation doesn't mean there is no sin in there, right? The sin of idolatry, the sin of just a sin of idolatry and pride, not realizing that actually letting go of this friendship would have been also allowing Christ to properly lead us. But sometimes we have idolatry in our hearts and pride in our hearts, and we don't want to let go. And that can also play a role too, right?
Peace that I had in the friendship with him that I did not have when Chris and I weren't talking. And so the spiritual directors were encouraging me to stay in this relationship. My friends had given up thinking we would ever actually not talk.
Wait, so she had peace with him and not a peace when she was separate from him. Listen, I hear it though. I hear it. That can really be a real thing. I just think to myself that sometimes we talk about trauma and we talk about attachment styles. If you are somebody with an avoidant attachment style, especially fearful avoidant, I'm just going to go for that one, or anxious, right? You are going to feel much better when you're in the relationship than when you are not, because again, it feels like abandonment, and because you externalize your feelings for somebody. You know what I'm saying to you? So it will feel like, yes, when you're with that person, it's amazing, and when you're not, it's not safe. Your nervous system is playing up, right? Said, how do you tell when someone isn't for you? Do you pray to God for answers or figure out your own? You listen, if you want to know if someone is for you, be honest and just be real with God. Like, hey, God, I like this person. I'm going to be honest with you. I like them. I want to be with them. That's the honest truth, right? But let your will be done. You know what I mean? But let your will be done. And then you open your eyes and you really pay attention to what's happening. You know what I mean? And then you're going to start seeing, don't start pushing it away. Oh, this person's doing this and this and this. Oh, okay. Right? Does that person push you closer to Christ? Does that person make you a better person? Does that person, are they, again, this story here, you're waiting 10 years. A man who likes you and wants you ain't waiting 10 years. Do they like you for you, or do they like what you do? Are you even liking you for you? You know what I mean?
But Chris
and also pray, Lord, remove anybody that doesn't need to be in my life. I'm telling you.
That is now the one who for a period of months is trying to get me to have these conversations. And I didn't want to talk about it because I just assumed, well, if we talk about it, I had given up on the thought of him ever wanting to date me. And I was like, that's
also, I want to add this as well. Sorry, this is a very important point. The prayer of saying, Lord, remove somebody from my life. I also think after a while, not that it doesn't work. I want to be very clear here. I believe that when God is training you, he's maturing you. So sometimes you might get to a level where you pray, Lord, remove people from my life that are not meant for me, and nobody's removed. What does that mean? It means God is expecting you, because he's trained you to that position, that prayer is not what's governing removing people. You have the autonomy and the authority to remove them from your life. So sometimes that prayer works for a lot of people because that's the base level we're at. Spiritually, mentally, emotionally. So God works with the level that we're at. So we say, Lord, remove them from my life. And God removes them from my life because that's the level you're at. Then it gets to a place where God is training you. Some of you, not all of them, not everybody. He trains some of you because some of you are teachers. Some of you are managers. Some of you are people that are going to educate other people. So what he does with you specifically, is not everybody. He will, that prayer might not work anymore. And what he's looking for is that he's training you, say, hey, look, I want you to pay attention, use the wisdom, use the skills, use the knowledge, use the understanding that I'm giving you on earth, use that knowledge and learn how to deal with relationships. And then once you use that, you're not praying that prayer anymore. Why? Because you're not dependent on that. You're like, God, I know you trust me to make decisions, and I know this person isn't right for me, right? My spirit's irked. I don't feel comfortable. I got to go. They're not for me.
We're not going to date. And so if we have this conversation, we're going to stop talking. And I don't want to do that anymore.
So you'd given up hope.
I'd given up hope. I did not think, I was like, this is not going to happen. And finally, we were, a friend of his kind of lit into me about our friendship. And I broke down in tears in front of Chris about it. And we went for a drive. And we were in Abbeville, South Carolina. And on that drive, he's like, well, maybe we should actually start dating. I was like, maybe. What? Like, are you serious? And it was so natural and yet so surreal all at the same time. And so that was in December of 2014. And we started dating and we got engaged a year later. He had wanted us to date for a full year because he'd had these two sort of precipitous engagements, and one had been to a good friend. And it was in the course of their engagement that he got to see her family dynamics and realized how she participated in some really problematic family dynamics. And he was like, I don't think I want to bring that into a marriage. So
he broke up the former engagement, both of them?
First one he broke off.
So he had toxic patterns in his relationships too. Yeah, the host is definitely not buying it for sure. I don't know. Maybe we should date is crazy. But anyway, he had toxic patterns in his relationship too. Hence why the toxic patterns are working for them. You see, that's why their nervous systems were working so well together, right? When he ran out of the feeding that he had on his side, he'll come right back to her and get fed again, then go right back out there again, right? So I wonder what was happening during these engagements when they're no longer friends. What was going on? Like, we don't really know.
Okay. The second one, he broke off the engagement but wanted to continue dating, and they did for a while, and then she broke off the relationship.
So he was picky. I mean, well, clearly.
I mean, he was
clearly, it took him 9 years to finally.
He was picky. I think his illness really did affect him, like Lyme disease.
And I don't say picky pejoratively, by the way. I'm not saying that pejoratively.
My husband is.
Listen, Lyme disease don't make no difference, baby girl. He was out here engaged twice. It didn't stop him then, I'm guessing. So, sis, let's leave the illness alone.
Incredibly good man. He is a good man, and he's a wise man. And I think that's why a lot of people were struggling to see why he was still single in his 40s, because they're like, Chris Chapman's awesome. Like, Chris Chapman is such a good guy. Why can he not like move it forward and pick a woman and marry? Not because he wasn't a jerk. He wasn't sinful. He was a very good.
He wasn't a sex addict. He didn't have mental health issues, deep wounds that were preventing healthy relationships. He had a job. There wasn't the skeleton in the closet there.
There's no red flags other than there's two broken engagements, and he's single, and he's like, my husband's very handsome. He's good looking, and he's not married. Like, what's going on? Or he could be dealing with the grief from the loss of a parent. Like, you don't know who is broken today, who is going to be whole tomorrow. Like, we think we can see everything, and all we can see is a moment, and God sees it all. And so all those years when I was being patient and trying to do what God wanted, like, God used those years too. Like, we look back and sometimes we'll say, because Chris for a long time really struggled, because once we started dating, we were so happy. Like, it was the easiest, most natural thing in the world to date. It was so easy to get married. Like, those first years of our marriage, like, it's all, I always say being married to Chris is the easiest thing I've ever done. Like, we had such a solid friendship, and he's so loving.
The dating was hard. The marriage was easy.
The friendship was hard.
The non-dating friendship was hard.
Right. Like, we had a lot of hardships out during that time. But Chris, every once in a while, and he did this a lot early on before our kids came, and he would say, I wish, like, I don't know what was wrong with me. I wish we had more time. I hate that we lost all that time. But I'm so glad it worked out as it did. Like, God knew it all. When I got on Catholic Match that day in 2005, probably like right around now, 20 years ago, it's been 20 years in August since I got on Catholic Match. God saw it all. He saw all of the waiting. He saw all of the friendship. He saw all of the work that he would do in me during those years. If we'd gotten married right away and maybe been able to start a family right away, I had just started freelancing at that time. I'd just written my first article for First Things.
Let me tell you something. Old boy was probably, listen, I'm not even trying to be rude. A man could have been banging other chicks, blood. I'm just being honest with you. Like, I'm saying it crudely to make it really play a point. She has no clue whether he was sleeping with his ex partners or not. Because that man will lie to you. And listen, a man will lie to you, and a woman will lie to you. People will lie to you. Okay, because they're human beings. Okay, so they may not tell you anything because maybe they feel like, you know what, I've got a good image of you. I'm not destroying that image. And also, and I'm not saying anybody's doing it, but I'm saying to you, 2 broken engagements, no sex, nothing in between. Is man a virgin? What's going on, blood? Yeah, 10 years, man weren't sinning. We weren't sinning in our friendship. It's too holy, holy, holy. Because that amount of time, where you're not having sex, you want to have a relationship quickly. I'm sorry. Then we have to ask the question: is he sexually attracted to her? We have to ask a serious question.
What I've kept writing, what I've done, the work that God has given me to do over the past 20 years.
Would this book exist?
Would that book exist? Their children and who couldn't have children. We never, even if we've been considering adoption at that time in 2018, would we have been chosen to be his mom?
So this is your first son.
Our first son. Yeah.
And so when you and Chris get married, so this is a year-long dating.
Yeah. 5-month engagement.
5-month engagement. So then at that point, Chris is like, we're doing this.
We're like, what is it?
We're doing this.
We had I had all these speaking engagements because I was doing a lot of speaking back then. And I was like, so we were trying to figure out when can we get married and where's
Toby is your oldest son.
Toby's our oldest son. Yeah.
Okay. His story is amazing. You got to let us know though, how he asked you to marry you. And then the grand finale. I mean, it's not the finale, but
so Chris hates these stories. Like, he hates it when I talk about all this because he's like, I'm the bad guy. I'm always the bad guy. And so I was like, honey, you're not the bad guy. Like, it was the best guy. He's the best guy. Yeah. He's such a good man. And all of my friends who didn't know him very well when through all those years, like the more they got to know him, they're like, oh, this is why Emily waited. So many people have met him and they're like, oh my gosh, this is no wonder you waited so long. And I was like, yeah, he's really awesome. He was all excited. So I have my grandmother's ring, and my grandmother died when I was 19. I was very close to her. She was a young grandma. And I always knew that I would get the ring if I wanted it. And so he asked my mom for the ring, and he had all these big plans to come back and ask me to marry him on the Feast of the Epiphany. And then he got sick and had 103-degree fever. Was sick for days and days and days, and knew he had to ask me because I had all these speaking engagements that I had to honor, and the window was closing. And so he came over for dinner and on my couch, and just a very sweet way asked me to marry him. And it's nothing big or grand like he'd wanted to do, but I didn't care. Like, he asked me to marry him.
How did you feel when he asked you to marry him? After 9 years at this point, or are we going on 10 years?
Let's see, that was 10 years.
After 10 years of first meeting him and thinking he's the one, 10 years later, now he's finally asking you.
I was a little scared. I was scared that I would always worry that he didn't really love me, and that he had, I think I was scared because 10 years of what's going on, what's happening. Like, does he love me? Why will this guy not go away? Why does he keep calling me? Like, what is wrong with this man? All of that, not feeling good enough. Like, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not sweet enough. I'm not enough. Like, I had a lot of years of feeling like I wasn't enough. And I was very worried that even after we married, I would still feel like I was not enough. And I will say I worried about that through the whole of the engagement. I was very.
Well, if you start feeling like you're not enough, like I said, that's the attachment theory right there. Those, again, I'm going back to my fearful avoidance. Fearful avoidance usually have that not feeling good enough, not enough situation. I wonder what her background is. I wonder what environment and childhood she had growing up, right? Because I'm trying to figure out the thought process of not feeling enough again. And of course we all have it, but you spent a lot of years feeling like that. And that tells me that was probably an area God was trying to work on you. And had you worked on it, you might not be marrying this man, or at least maybe you might have married him earlier. Who knows, right? But that can then come across as very unattractive. You see, and sometimes you make it your whole persona, your whole energy and vibe is unattractive, right? When you don't feel like you're good enough, it can change how you even look and how you appear and how you show up. So you show up like somebody who's not an attractive person when you are an attractive person, but your vibe and your energy don't give it.
Worried about that. And now I had nothing to worry about. Like, my husband has just lavished me with love and affection. And you can show affection differently when you're married than you can when you're single. And so marrying and being able to be fully affectionate with each other and fully intimate and just building a life together, and the way he showed his love and the way he, so there's this beautiful passage in, I think it's in The Great Divorce, those memories, so that it's not an issue now. And it's hard to, I have to work. It's why Chris gets exhausted by the telling of the story, because we're always telling it. And so all those fears proved the marital graces, the graces of the sacrament are so powerful, and they've healed all those wounds and all those memories, so that it's not an issue now. And it's hard to, I have to work. It's why Chris gets exhausted by the telling of the story, because we're always telling it.
You're past it. You're so past it.
We're so past it. We've been married for 9 years now.
We've been married for 9 years,
and
3
it's
kids.
a real relationship. Yeah. And that's where the love story begins.
He needs to be on the show. Dang it. We should have had a double this. I made this mistake before in the show. I have the retelling of this amazing love story. And it's where's the husband? And we actually have done it with the man where it's where's the wife? But we'll have to have him on next time.
He's great.
He sounds like he's very wise too.
He's so wise. And so such a gift to me. I always, the writing I do, I'm such a better writer because of Chris. I'm a better woman because of Chris. I'm a better mother. I am more Emily because of Chris. I'm more who God made me to be because of him. And that was true during our friendship, and it's been true during our marriage. And so, yeah, but I guess that's why I'm always this is the least interesting part of our life. It's the sitcom part. It's, I always say when I'm talking about, and so, yes, that would absolutely be something that would come up during an annulment. Sadly,
what you just said, and I know you actually write about adjacent themes to what you just said, but that is a unfortunate misunderstanding, I think, amongst even many Christians today, where they interpret St. Paul and they say, marriage is given to us because we're burning with passion. And so therefore, our spouse is an outlet for this passion. And I know there's an element of truth there, but if you're missing the larger picture, it can become an occasion for sin, quite frankly, and objectifying the spouse. But what are your
Well, we struggle to understand the difference between lust and attraction. They are different. Like you should be attracted to your spouse. You should want to sleep with your spouse, but that attraction is for the whole person. Like it's for who you love the way they look. You're attracted to them physically, but you want to talk to them. You want to be with them. You want to trust them with yourself. Like you are attracted to who they are. Like my husband is attracted to me, every part of me. You know, your husband is attracted to you, every part of you. Lust is when you reduce the person to their body, to one part of themselves. And that's what you want. If somebody wants just your body, that is lust. If somebody wants your body and all of you and to make a gift of themselves to you and to receive the gift of yourself, that's attraction. Attraction is good. Attraction is holy. Attraction is from God. Like we see it in the Song of Songs. Lust is not from God. Lust is reducing a person to less than who they are. And a person who is addicted to pornography has an active addiction, an active habit of use. You can't know that he sees you for who you are. Like, how do you know until you've sorted that out? And it's not to say, again, it's not to say this person is never going to become marriage.
My time is up. But I wanted to do that because I thought it was a cool one to do. But I'll be honest with you, I'm looking at it and I'm like, sis. How does she know that he thinks that she's attractive? How does she know that? Since you guys are not having any conversations that are wayward, and of course, she's saying attracted to the whole being. What she was an emotional connection. How do we know? How do we know? I'm just saying, right? Because all your conversations were above board. There's a reason. I'm not saying you have to sin, but what I am saying is our brother's been engaged twice. You waited 10 years. He never had one slip up. He never was like, you know what? You're just so sexy today. You're a human being. I'm sorry. I'm just being real with you. He didn't have one slip up. How do you know he liked you physically? You know he liked you emotionally. How do you know he liked you physically? You know what I mean? Not one. You know what? I just want to tap your heart. You Christian, but you ain't that Christian because he already done 2 engagements, blood. Right? Brother doesn't want to tell the story again for real. He don't want to tell that story again because not because it's long. It's because, and not because he's a bad guy. It's also because really and truly, yeah, it probably sounds like he settled. It sounds like that. I'm not saying he is because we can't definitely conclude it, but it does sound like he settled. Okay. Also, I don't think they even had kids. They didn't have kids. They're adopted. So I think they're adopted. I don't think she actually had kids. I think they're adopted.
Well, it's not to say that someone who's broken today is going to be broken forever. But as a man, he has a responsibility to learn how to value women for who they are, for creatures of God, like
whole person.
Yeah.
Then that is lust in a marriage. I think that's a really important point for people like you. Like you should
reflect the image of God as much as they do, you know, in their ability to reason and choose right from wrong and give themselves. Like, so a man who has a pornography habit, a regular habit, has no business dating because that woman's not going to solid for him. That's be able to control your own desires to order them towards the good of the person. Then you're not loving them. You're lusting after them. So there can absolutely be lust in marriage. And that lust is what it reduces a person to an object who is there to fulfill your needs. And that's not what we want. And a good man, there's good men out there who are struggling with pornography addictions.
And women.
There's no
person. We don't have to be this way. And, you know, there's pushback against that, of course. But yeah, in my views, if the writing is erotica, it's designed for arousal and sexual fantasizing.
Because women tend to be aroused differently.
It's female porn. That's what it is.
It is. And so, no, I think there's lots of good people who find them in them. And they're like, okay, if I get married, this will solve that problem. But it's not going to. Like, find a spiritual, all of this room to be who God made you to be.
So beautiful. You guys are living this beautifully. I got to hear the story of all of your children have incredible stories. So this is its own episode. Actually, this could be its own also series. This is another TV series, Emily. The story of your children.
It was pretty intense. It was a pretty intense time. So Chris and I got married and I was 41. I just turned 41 when we got married. He was just about to turn 40. He was 47, I think. He was about to turn 48. But I'm so like type A, choleric, I know, and I want babies. Like I've been waiting for a long time for babies.
You're like 41, maybe we could squeeze in 6 if I just do one every like 13 months.
I know.
For the next
we thought we're like maybe
years.
3,
twins,
like
2 sets of twins.
yeah. How do we do it? I was totally praying for twins. Which I learned that's not I was supposed to pray for. But I had done all the NAPRA tests, so I'm like, we're not even married and I'm getting my hormones tested. I'm getting everything checked out. The doctors are like, you look great. You should be able to hit the ground running. There's no reason you can't conceive. After several months, nothing was happening. I go back to the NAPRA doctors. I'm like, not conceiving yet. What else can we do? They're like, well, let's do an exploratory surgery. And so we spent really a year and a half doing everything possible to conceive because again, I so wanted to be a mother and I felt like God had.
Sis, did he do a check? No. Did he do a check? Sis, if they're saying everything is right on your end, did he do a check? Because maybe he's shooting blanks. Maybe he's shooting some blanks. Maybe he's shooting some blanks. That's what I'm going to say.
Told me I was going to be a mother and I was willing to do whatever it took within the moral boundaries that the church had set up. And I remember one point I was in my kitchen. I was like, I'm not eating anything good. I'm taking all these vitamins. I'm taking all these hormones. I was like, I should be spontaneously reproducing. Like there should be a baby like popping out of my head, like, Athena from the head of Zeus. It was not happening. And I was so broken. Like I felt like I'd waited so long and I'd done all the right things. Like I had been the good Catholic girl. I had been chaste. I had prayed. I had prayed the novenas. I had worked for God. Like I wrote fundraising letters for God, Lila. Like,
sis is the pure. Remember purity culture? Now I get it. Now we get it. Now we get it. It makes sense now. Purity culture. Sis. Sis. Purity culture. Yeah. When you follow purity culture, it does a number on people, man. You thought you were the perfect girl. You haven't been chaste. You haven't been sexing. You've done everything correctly. Yeah, it's finished, blood. It's finished. Because once man locks in, it's done.
Oh, how awful fundraising letters are to write. I'm like, come on, Lord, all those fundraising letters and not a single baby. And no babies were coming. And I was so broken and I felt betrayed by God and I felt betrayed by my body and I felt like a failure as a wife and a mother. And at that point, I was doing a study for Endow about Humanae Vitae. And I didn't want to do the study because I was mad. I was like, I don't want to tell fertile couples that they should be happy to have a baby. Like, I don't feel like giving a pep talk to anyone who doesn't get how blessed they are to be able to conceive. But in the course of that study, God really showed me that he wasn't asking anything of me and Chris, that he wasn't asking of anyone else. He was asking us to trust him with our fertility, just like we trusted him with every other part of our life. And that's what I hadn't been doing. I've been praying all the novenas and taking all the vitamins and doing all the special diets, but I was not trusting God. Like I was trying to control the situation. And when Chris and I realized that Chris was a lot more trustful than me, I was the one who was being super controlling, a little bit of a struggle for me. And so we decided to take a break. We're like, all right, we're going to step back. No more special vitamins for Emily, no hormones for Emily. I'm going to go ahead and
scheduling sex. Is that
no scheduling sex.
Just have fun, enjoy yourselves, but
nothing more miserable than scheduled sex. And we're like, this is just no charting. I stopped charting. I stopped doing everything. And during that time, we'd always talked about adoption, but we felt like it wasn't something, we didn't think we'd have the money. We didn't know how. We both worked for the church. I'm a Catholic writer. He's a Catholic school teacher, and adoptions cost around $50,000. We're like, there's no way. But during this time, we're like, you know what? We want to be parents. Like more than we want to be pregnant, we want to be parents. And if we're really trusting God, just like I opened the window to Catholic Match and I opened that window and Chris walked in, we're like, maybe we just need to, we're not seeing what God is seeing. We're not seeing this clearly enough. We need to open a window and start thinking about adoption. And as soon as we opened that window, it's like God started chucking babies. We our first son, I asked on Facebook, I asked people a question about home studies because we were renovating our home at the time. I was like, how done does our home have to be before we can pass a home study?
A home study to be eligible
to adopt. And within a month of that, it was the week I sent off the Endow study on Humanae Vitae. The very week I sent it off, one of those attorneys who we had talked to called us and said, look, I've got a mom who has some very specific requirements for a couple. And Sunday, I had that view book together. It's a good time to be a writer who does some knowledge of graphic design and by choose surrogacy over adoption because it is cheaper to choose surrogacy and it's more guaranteed because adoption is never guaranteed. You want the mother to feel free to change her mind at any point. And this mother she struggled profoundly. There's lots of drama. I shared too much online that I should not have. I never did again with future adoptions. I learned a lot. Through that first adoption. And we'd found like it was so complicated. We ended up finding a trailer for them, and we had to like figure out how can we get this trailer, this mobile home, so they can live it to them. And you were connecting us with different pro-life people here in California because the adoption was here. It was cool.
Love them so much.
I adore them, and they're so wonderful.
They're the best.
And they introduced me to their founder, who Mama Lucita, who she was married for 14
before she died, or
no.
Oh, no. Okay.
For Toby, we'll be praying for Toby. And after Toby was born, I was giving a talk in Philadelphia, and their Mother Superior was there, and Toby was with us. And I was so excited to introduce, Mother Superior.
My time is up. The hour's up, man. Okay. Make of it what you want to make of it. I think I've said what I need to say. I appreciate you guys. Still locked and loaded. I'll see you again soon. We out.